There we go. Good Friday afternoon, everybody. We are still waiting on Victor to show up. How is everybody doing? By the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Darren Pope, and I am one of the co-hosts. Again, Victor is normally over there, but he's not here yet. And we are the podcast co-hosts of a podcast called DevOps Paradox, and on Fridays we do this thing called DevOps Paradox Live. And hopefully he will be here soon. And we talk about the news of the week and go through just whatever's going on. If you got any questions or whatever's going on, you can drop them over in the comments. It's a whole lot easier now that I have the full palette to work with today. If you don't have a drink, go grab a drink, and we'll go ahead and get this weekend started off right. As Victor is getting ready to be in here in just a minute, I'm going to talk about this week's podcast episode. And this was episode 97, and we had a conversation with Victor Gamow, not Victor Farsick, but Victor Gamow, and we were talking about Apache Kafka, and here is our Victor right now. There he is, and there you are.
There I am, late.
Glad you could join us today.
Yeah, I was jumping from one meeting to another, but I made it.
Wait, you're classifying this as a meeting?
I mean, I was jumping from a meeting to a meeting, and then I made it here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, I was just sort of catching up everybody on grabbing the drinks, doing the things, and we were talking about the podcast of this week with Victor Gamow. And very interesting. We normally don't have a whole lot of application people on, and we did this week, just as something different. Victor was good. I had two Victors. One was a Russian. I thought about it, and I should have put it in the podcast. A Russian, a Serb, and an American walk into a bar. And that's what it turned, that's sort of what it turned into, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that ends up, except that whenever a joke starts with Russian, Russian ends up being a winner.
Victor's a very smart guy. So, Victor, we would like to thank you for being on this week, just in case you're watching, but you might not be. Vladislav, good to see you. Thank you for hanging out with us today live. Let's get into the news. There wasn't that much this week. It was a very quiet week. Do you have any idea why that was?
No. Was anything happening?
Nothing.
No,
just,
I don't think so.
nothing huge. Just, only a, let me find my notes here. Only a $6.5 billion acquisition.
Oh, yeah.
Of Okta buying Auth0. $6.5 billion, all stock deal.
Yeah, I had no idea that actually Okta itself has that sort of capital to begin with.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering why that wasn't working. There we go. This was a bit shocking to me because it was always either Okta or Auth0. I liked both of them. But what's interesting is they're going to keep Auth0 as their own product, as an umbrella under Okta.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the odd customers.
Right. But I'm still trying to figure out why would you... Maybe there's like a 5 or 10 year plan to make Auth0 disappear. I don't know. Right? I haven't read it, but...
Yeah, first step, buy competition. We're still in that step. Now, step number 2, how to you combine them, that's probably going to come in a year or two.
Yeah, or more. Yeah, that's
or
fine,
more.
But,
or never.
Or never. Right. Because they each did things a lot similar, and there were a couple things that were just different. And I thought they were both fine, and still do think they're both fine. So I don't have any problems with it. But this was, from my perspective, the big tech news of the week that really didn't get much coverage, in my opinion. So if anybody from Okta or Auth0 want to come on and talk, we'll be more than happy to talk with you. Actually, we probably should get somebody on from Okta.
Yeah.
To talk about, on the podcast, whether here or just on the podcast, to talk about identity. because identity's going to be becoming bigger and bigger as time moves along.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So congratulations to Auth0. 6.5 billion. That's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money.
Hey, I would be fine if they gave me 1% of that.
What would that be? 650, what's that? So 6 billion, move the decimal one, that'd be 650, move the decimal one more, 65 million?
Okay, 0.1%.
Okay, 6.5 million is okay.
Yeah, I would be fine.
All right. All right. I dropped this in here. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this one yet or not. This gives me an upset stomach. And I don't know why. It's basically a redirector, which is fine.
Okay.
But it's also giving you all of the analytics. So instead of pointing people directly at, let's say, either Maven Central or directly at Docker Hub, you point them at your Scarf endpoint, which then just proxies whatever, and then you're able to capture, the way they title it here, a new model for commercial open source software. So
it's kind of like to capture the traffic and get some analytics, some data between the consumer and then the destination, right?
Yeah, and it gets here to Documentation Insights provides simple tracking pixels. Privacy is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. I mean, in Chrome 88, they're removing a bunch of third-party cookie type things, which is going to be out in a couple of months. So just general advertising is going to be changing. How does this fall into it? This is the Documentation Insights. And I'm not saying anything, it's coming out negative. I understand that. But this just sort of smells to me. But it's also important because do you want to know which versions of your package are being used? That's a good piece of information. But hey, I can put Scarf.js inside of my application, and then it's going to start shipping data out.
Yeah, but that data is likely going to be blocked from being shipped.
You would hope so, right? You'd hope the perimeter is blocking those the egress of that data. But
here's the thing. I'm failing to get kind of who are potential customers. I guess very small companies, because if you're anything but tiny, you probably have your own registry, right, with the images.
Yeah, but it's just,
okay, maybe you want to put it in Docker Hub, I guess.
You put it in front
to make it more convenient.
I mean, at least this picture here is the gateway product that they have, or project, I think. Let's say you wanted to change from Docker Hub to a Artifactory hosted registry.
Yeah.
Well, that means your users would all have to change their endpoints unless you started out with Scarf in front and then you just changed the implementation under the hood. I'm okay with that. Right? That's okay. But
it makes, maybe, but kind of if you're willing to give your users, so the question is, do you want to give your users, just like Docker Hub address or some other address? If you're giving some other address, which is the case of this solution, then why not set up your own registry? Kind of like the only reason why I imagine somebody would like to go to Docker, a vendor to store it in Docker Hub is to avoid kind of like special URL.
Yeah. Well,
maybe
for these guys, it keeps coming back to, again, in my opinion, see which companies are downloading your containers. Are there companies using your library that would pay you for a support contract? Scarf can tell you which companies are frequently visiting your documentation. This is very much a marketing, account-based marketing type play, in my opinion. The way they're positioning it all is all about who's coming to see you. We can tell you who's coming to see you.
Yeah, actually, now the more I think, the more it does make sense.
Yeah,
True. It's not. I thought initially that it's about container images, but it's basically about anything, right?
It's about data.
Yes.
It's about so instead of maintaining and distributing your open source project in the dark, take steps to ensure success. We understand that open source projects are basically ship and pray, and you never really know who's using you unless you've built in some sort of telemetry within the project.
And then probably use the telemetry to push out the enterprise version of that open source, I guess. Yeah, true.
So I think what's rubbing me wrong on this, again, I don't have a problem with this. And in fact, if this is a really hardened and a good way of doing things, I'm down with that. It's just that the way that they're positioning it is, again, see which containers or which companies are downloading. And are there companies using your library? It's this kind of thing. It just smells.
And why open source? Why would this be open source in the first place?
Yeah,
companies have no problem paying few bucks for that as a service. This is very much oriented at non-open source, or maybe I'm rubbing it the wrong way, right?
Yeah. It's just it feels weird to me.
Yeah.
Telemetry, good thing, right? Telemetry is always good. But when somebody says does not store any personally identifiable information about your users, that usually means that they're probably storing some personally identifiable information somewhere.
Is that kind of like in US there is that way to say something and then with not?
Yeah.
Right?
It's a double negative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says it does not store. Right? Does not store. In other words, it's not taking the data and dropping it in the can. But they have the data. The question, it feels bad. And if anybody from Scarf sees this, please don't take it the wrong way. There's just some phrasing here that it feels like a used car salesman a little bit to me. And I buy all my cars from used car salesmen, so it's not, that doesn't bug me a whole lot. It just feels wrong. Okay, let's move on. Backstage. We talked about Backstage in November. This is Spotify's open source internal developer platform. In fact, you've got a webinar coming up. Was it this week or is it next week with Humanitech?
Yes. Next week or week after, I don't know.
Yeah,
my calendar will pop up when I need to go somewhere.
You show up, sort of like today, right?
Exactly.
It's okay to show up late here. Don't show up late there. But I hadn't seen this one. I saw a repost of this week, and this has actually been out now for basically 2 months. And they put in a Kubernetes for service owners, which the picture, not the cool looking picture here, but this picture here of, instead of you having to know where your thing is, you just need to know what your thing is, and then it will tell you where your thing lives. So turning it around the other direction. It's not an infra perspective from a Kubernetes, it's an application owner's visualization of where it is.
Yeah. And generally, Backstage is something that we badly need. Kind of being able to create UI screens that are specific to your team, to the department, instead of, hey, here is 57 different UIs, everybody go to whichever of those you want, right? When you have larger organization, it's silly to expect that all the teams want the same thing. So being able to create UI for each team or UI screens for each team that is tailored to their needs is absolutely amazing. Hey, you want Jira? you put Jira on your home screen. You don't want Jira, no Jira, right? I mean, I'm using Jira as example, but conceptually, it's great. Now, the problem I have with Backstage is that it's really kind of not user-friendly. How you create your screens, how you create plugins, what's not. You can see that it is something that came out of Spotify engineering. They understand how it works and how to extend it, because it's all about being able to extend it. And I hope that they're working on making it better, kind of, for people who want to create their screens.
Yeah. But it was interesting that they actually added in first-class support for Kubernetes.
I see this as I think that actually service providers should adopt something like this. Imagine if you could go to, let's say, AWS, right?
Yeah.
And you see the stuff that you chose to see.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of whole AWS, instead of everything that your company is using or what's not, kind of tailored for your team.
Yeah.
And includes everything that you use. That's amazing.
Instead of being focused on, okay, here are the services that me as a provider gives you. Flip it around. And it's, okay, you've set it up. Here are your applications. Here are the things that you use. Basically, I'll be polite to Atlassian today. Basically, here's the confluence of your team. But it's not just Confluence. It's actually a functional, living, breathing application that you manage and see everything. How was it that I was polite to Confluence? It's because you're muted, I think.
Like 30 years ago or something, right? Or 20 something. We were all creating web portals that would have the links that we care about, kind of.
Yeah.
To navigate. You remember that time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this reminds me on that kind of, hey, I can create my personal web portal. And then another team in my company can create some other.
But the thing that was typically missing back then is we didn't have hooks into the concept of DevOps and self-managing the stuff you wrote. Didn't exist as much back then. And now, if you're really managing, if you wrote it, you manage it, that still doesn't exist everywhere, by the way, for most people. But if it does, now this is at least a reasonable thing. But I'm really curious to see what comes out of your webinar with Humanitech. I really am.
Me too. You should look at the description, man. It says so. We agree that webinar should be that each of us, three of us, should kind of present some kind of topic problem that we are working on, real world examples, and then there is what guy from Humanitech will do this, and then Adam from Container Solution will do this, and Victor TBD. It's probably gonna be okay, something like that.
Yeah, why am I not surprised? I'm not. OpenHistogram. This was open source this week from a company. I can't remember their name. It's down in the footer. Where is it? The company is... Okay, forgive me for messing this up. Circonus? That's what I'm going to say. That feels about right.
Yeah, I mean, whomever you are, you need to fire your marketing department if you have one. Circonus.
But they open sourced this week. Now, there are only a handful of supported implementations: C, C++, Lua, Python, Go, C#, and JavaScript. So if you're using Java today, tough. But it's interesting. Fully open source. It's dual licensed. I do want to go there in a second. But they've got a pretty good... Okay, ignore Circonus there for... in case you don't know who this is, if you're outside of the States, this is the Major League Baseball. Smug Mug is a print on demand. Is that what they do? I don't remember.
Never heard.
But it was, I do want to take a look at that, but if I take a look at the docs, whoops, that's not it. What did I hit? Was it FAQs? FAQs. So it was just talking about doing histograms. That's all that they're doing. I did not dig into this a whole lot, except for this one thing. The license. So, again, I am not a lawyer. Victor is not a lawyer. We do not pretend to play one on TV or in real life. But they have a 3-clause BSD. And then they also have a variation of Apache 2 that they have named OpenHistogram license. It gets
whenever
confusing.
I see some dual license, triple license, whatever they call it, I get that bad feeling in my stomach. Kind of. I imagine a meeting before they open sourced it. Okay, how are we going to open source it without open sourcing it? And some, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, nothing against Circonus. It's your business. Do it how you want to do it. But much like you, unless it's straightforward, this is Elastic all over again. Except they're short-circuiting it before it got to the point to where Elastic was. So that would be my only thing. If I was going to use it internally, and it was never for an external-facing product, it was just going to be internal usage, like in my team, I probably wouldn't care much about it. That would, but if I was going to use it as part of a service, no, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
I wouldn't.
And
but otherwise, if you're looking for some histogram stuff just for internal, let's try to get back to the happy part. It's always cool to have good-looking telemetry, which I don't understand why I don't remember where I had the picture earlier. There were some other examples, and now I'm drawing a blank where I saw them. But hey, histogram. Maybe it was this one. So nice and warm right in that area. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just nice and warm right there. Speaking of nice and warm for all of us in the Northern Hemisphere, spring is coming. It's starting to warm up, which I'm very thankful for. Let's move on. We've already had 2 pieces of 3. Okay, so Okta and Auth0, thumbs up. No problems. Scarf, something smells. Backstage, it's Backstage. This is like, So let's get into some of our friendlies. Copilot had a new release this week. And they pulled in some stuff for their, this is for the AWS pipeline. This was a big one, unfortunately for real life, but now you can actually mount existing EFS volumes. And they're now supporting Bitbucket. So now they've got support for GitHub, Bitbucket, and Code Commit, which is AWS's thing. The last big one they don't have yet is GitLab. I imagine that will be, I haven't looked at their backlog. And there were a handful of other just smaller things. So this, to me, wasn't a huge deal. Again, the bug fixes. I wish, everybody pay attention to me. If you're using Release Drafter on GitHub, please put features and enhancements above bug fixes. Please. Look, you're in your day job, you're semi-product owner, right? That's your day job. Is that true or false? I don't even know what you're doing anymore.
Yeah, something exactly. Semi-product owner, something like that. Yes.
As a product, so the reason why I'm asking it is I want to pose a question to you. As a product owner, Are you more concerned about people knowing and understanding new features and enhancements before finding out about bug fixes, or do you care about bug fixes taking priority over releases or release enhancements?
Enhancements is something that you go to check out from release notes. Bugs, you're interested in only if you experience them already. And then you're following that specific bug, right? You're probably following that issue, what's or not. I don't care about bugs in general when reading release notes. I skip that completely, unless it's a bug that I'm following specifically. Hey, I hit this thing. I found out that there is an issue. I follow it, but not through release notes. At least not me.
Okay. Now, this may be a release drafter thing, and I'm just being a doofus, and I just don't realize it.
I don't know. Everybody has features
this
first.
afternoon. Yeah, I like features first. Because I want to be excited before I get to the point of, oh, that was broken and I didn't even know about it. That's sort of also a sad thing, which means I probably wasn't using it. So Copilot, Dave, everybody else. I wish I could say this guy's name because he's the release guy. FA. Congratulations. I think we're still waiting. There was one other thing that I got a notification on one of the PRs that David opened up for us. But I don't remember what it was. I'll have to look at it again. But it was another one of the things that we requested is coming in pretty soon, I think. eksctl, I know you don't like this, Victor. I know you don't like this.
Depends what it is.
See, okay, so they're not using, I don't think they're using release drafter, but we'll see. So I don't go off on this. Added EFA support. I had no idea what EFA was. Did you know what EFA is?
I have no idea. I was about to ask you.
Okay, just hold that for a second. Let's go through this and we'll come back here. So I don't know if you caught it this week. If you are watching this and you've got your apps running in Japan, Osaka is now a full region. It used to just be a zone, but now they've taken it to a full region. So they only had one data center, and now they've got at least 3.
Do you really, when a cloud provider enables another zone, region, what's or not, do you really need to change code of things like this?
You do. And here's
really?
the reason why. The reason
okay.
why is because if it wasn't a region to begin with, it's handled differently from a definition perspective. I'm going to explain it bad if I go any further. But yeah, it's like you have to define. So it's like, okay, if I was adding a brand new region, it has to be defined somewhere. So once it's defined, then I have to change my code to use it. It's Terraform has the same issue, right? Anytime the AWS providers are updated.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it's simply either use whichever region. If Osaka opened just now, if I start using -- region Osaka or whatever it is, that it would just work. No, okay. I had no idea.
Well, it depends. It depends on which part it is that you're trying to use. A bunch of improvements that notice they don't call it bug fixes. I like improvements better than bug fix, by the way. It's a little more positive. But I think there was, here's bug fixes. I was wrong. So they have improvements. And what's the difference between an improvement and a bug fix?
You make something work better. Bug fix, you fix a problem that people were yelling about.
Okay.
If people detect something before you do it, if people don't detect something and you work on it, then it's improvement. If the same thing, if it was reported by somebody, it becomes a bug fix. It's like undocumented and documented features.
Okay, I don't know how to make a note of this. When you get back to doing your DevOps, what was that series called? The one where you did the 2 videos already? 3 videos? You muted yourself again, I think.
Sorry, DevOps explained, right?
Explain whatever it was. Yeah, we need to put that definition in. I'm serious. That's a good one, right? I mean, because it's if it wasn't known, then it's an improvement. If it is known, it's a bug fix.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get back to EFA for a second. This one was actually interesting too. Disable eviction. I went through the release notes or the issue on this one. They added in support for this in 1.18. At least this was added in 1.18. I think is what it was. Yeah, as of 1.18, kubectl drain supported a flag called disable eviction. And they just now got that in. So, all right, so let's get back to EFA. EFA is Elastic Fabric Adapter.
Okay.
Again, I have no idea what that means, except for this key part here, fabric, which then leads into this, HPC.
Okay.
All right, so it's HPC.
Makes things faster.
Makes things faster. Now, so I was reading this and I saw HPC. Now, I've never had an opportunity to work in an environment to where HPC was the norm. I've had friends that have. But it still didn't click when I saw HPC. It's like, oh, HPC, yeah, no big deal. Then I clicked on supported instance types.
Yep.
24 extra large. This is not your mother's M5 Nano or T3 Nano. 24X, 18X for the C5s or metal. Let's just put it this way. If you needed this kind of support, you've got lots of money to spend. I was like, nope, I won't need this. This is not what I'm working on right now. Don't need it. But and then they got into the limitations of whatever it is. But I just thought it was interesting that, and they actually have pictures here of what EFA is. It's like, here's a normal traditional HPC looking stack, whereas this is EC2 with EFA. So it completely changes basically this layer down plus some stuff. So if you're doing any kind of machine learning, this might be part of what you're doing. I don't know. Oh, speaking of which, I got to talk to you. I'll send you a message later. It's not important right now. It's not important right now. Just seeing this just reminded me of something. Okay. I don't even know how this needs to be said. This scares me. So I'm just going to say, since it looks like water, I'm going to say Liqo, like liquid. Liqo.
Liqo, probably, yeah.
Probably not right. It is an open source project. It's building your endless Kubernetes ocean. Okay. This is where you can tell where you've had real marketing people working with you and where you have not. Because this is purely an engineer's answer to, man, we want Kubernetes everywhere and it just needs to be flowing like an ocean. No.
So let's get
into what it is. It allows Kubernetes to seamlessly and securely share resources and services so you can run tasks on any other cluster available nearby. Can anybody say crypto mining? So, and thanks to the support for K3S, single machines can participate, creating dynamic, opportunistic crypto mining data centers that include commodity desktop computers, crypto mining, and laptops, crypto mining as well. This is like the old days back in the 90s to where there was software like this back in the 90s to where we actually used, I worked in oil and gas trading. I was support for that. And what we would do at night is when everybody was gone, we would actually take over all the machines on the trading floor, and that would become our compute for the night. This is no different.
Is that idea that it was very popular before, that you can enroll your laptop or computer into the program that
SETI at home.
Yeah, SETI at home, exactly.
Or
except that I trusted those guys, and I don't trust those guys.
Yeah, folding at home, SETI at home, all those guys. Yeah, so this is the 2021 version of that, I think.
Yeah.
And it's now when you take a look at their GitHub, I thought this was really funny. Let me go ahead. I meant to pull it up earlier. Let me get down to the README. There is a community meetings on Mondays, 6:30. Here it is. It is an alpha version and not yet production ready. So, but there is some things here that make it look interesting, like being able to get it out on the edge, which is part of the K3S stuff. This needs to probably be added to the list. The list has gotten much longer, but it just looks interesting. Interesting is the way to put it, I think.
Yeah, it just to me it does sound interesting, as long as it's not my laptop involved in that. That's the problem, right? Kind of, there is no way on earth. I mean, maybe if I go deeper into it, maybe, but right now there is no way on earth that I would enroll my compute into such a program. No way.
Right here. Our idea was straightforward. Let's transform our labs, including student laptops, into opportunistic data centers, i.e. crypto miners, so that heavy tasks can always be executed on the best resources of those available. Now, let's go back to the 90s. Back to my use case. The software that we had to run in order to make that work was painful. It worked. We could do it. But the 90s were very different than the 2020s.
To me, this makes sense only and exclusively if it's within a closed group. Like, hey,
it has to be closed.
You and me, for example, and I can use your compute power and you can use mine when I'm not working because we trust each other. Now, if it's within a trust zone of a group of people, okay, maybe. But
maybe.
Not maybe. And I said maybe. I'm trying to be generous.
Whew. By the way, here's how you say it. It's liquid computing, so Liqo. Liqo? I don't know.
There you go.
It stands for liquid computing. It's a large team, from what I would, but they're from
it's a university project.
Turin. Yeah. So from that perspective, thumbs up. The potential for evil here is huge, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean it's torrent, right? Essentially.
Yeah, it is torrent.
For compute.
Your app will be free to float in an infinite Kubernetes ocean.
Look, so yeah. No,
go ahead. Here,
no,
you're going full screen. Please go ahead and say it.
But I cannot imagine this being for anything but not serious usage, right? Kind of, you're not going to base your business on this. You're not going to base anything that has serious traffic, which has real users, what's not, right? So it's for very small use cases. And for small use cases, okay, I get that same thing actually from Google for free. Google Cloud Run. I have a small website that has some traffic that is nothing really big, and they don't even charge it because I never reached the limit. So yeah, Google Cloud Run, I have the same.
So this sentence is what bothers me. So I'm putting on my tinfoil hat. I'm bringing out all the conspiracy theories right now. It can not only solve our students' problems. Okay, that's a true problem. Think about it. Even for me, back in the 80s when I was in university, the only time I could get time on the mainframe at school was at 3 a.m. That was it. Now, back then, that's when I woke up. So I was going to bed at 6, 7 o'clock at night. Let's just say I was a dull and boring person, not much different than today. But here's where it scares the snot out of me. It also becomes the enabler for applications that rely on the democratization of edge computing, such as autonomous driving. You want me to run Liqo inside of my Tesla that's doing self-driving?
Really? I would sell that car that same moment, kind of like if I would, I don't, but if I would have a self-driving car and I hear that it's running or something like Liqo, man, I would run away from that car, hoping to preserve my life while I still have a chance.
Yeah, let me put these two in here: IoT, and I'm going to basically do a / Industry 4.0. Robots on the floor, and you're using the compute power from the robot to do something. Are you kidding me? That's Skynet. If nothing else, it'd be Puppet Master level Skynet. But look, I like the idea. I want to believe in a society to where this would not be used in a bad way. I'm old. I've seen lots. I know where this would go.
Look, even for the first use case, students and stuff like that, which maybe on a first look sounds okay, one of those students is going to crypto mine. I can guarantee you that 100%. It's impossible that there will not be one student who sees the opportunity and says, hey, I can do this. No way, absolutely no way.
Yeah. Now, would I like to try this out? Sure. Would I try it out with you? Maybe. Would I try it out with a meetup group? Heck no. No way. It's
absolutely not.
Yeah. Anyway, but it looks interesting. So I'll go there. All right, let's get into Skaffold. Why did you revisit Skaffold?
That has a very simple explanation. I'm getting elevated number of comments in videos where people are asking, hey, how about this? How about that? I cannot keep up with that demand, but basically Skaffold and videos, quite a few videos before Skaffold, and almost everything coming after is response to those comments. So as long as there are more comments, hey, why don't you explore this? Then I can do. I will not even look for my own subjects.
That's fine.
I mean, maybe every once in a while, of course I will, because I have life outside of those videos. So if I'm professionally doing XYZ, then I'm going to make a video about that. But majority is based on comments. This one and the next one is also, both are based on comments.
Yeah, and this, we'll go ahead and pull Thomas back in here, so let's rewind to Liqo for a second. You know, I expect this to happen in a company using desktops and similar for compute off hours. Well, what happens when that company has been breached on one desktop and now all of a sudden you spin up this other thing that makes these things automatically connected? The risk and blast radius goes through the roof.
So you know what will happen in that case if that hypothetical company does that? I mean, there is obviously an option it will fail miserably, but realistically, you would need to secure those machines even more, right? To avoid what you just said, and then you will make lives of people using it during that time even more miserable, right?
Absolutely.
Kind of like. So hey, suddenly during your 8 hours in the office, you cannot browse internet because it needs to be secure.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I did this back in the 90s. So this is nothing new to me, and it's already connected. It already belongs to the company. That's true. If the machine is completely locked down and it's not a bring your own device, absolutely. I still have a problem with it, because all it takes is one person to do one wrong thing, and that one machine gets compromised, and then all of a sudden you basically have them already all.
But you can prevent that from happening, Darren. I don't think that's a problem. The problem is that when you prevent that from happening, then you make people who do use those laptops or computers directly living hell. That's why when we visit companies and they say, and I ask, can you Google that? And they say, no, we cannot use Google.
Yeah.
Or
it's basically
Google, not that much, but kind of, hey, I cannot go to GitHub. It's forbidden.
Those people basically are not using computers. They have a very robust kiosk, right? I don't classify it as a computer anymore. I mean, yes, it is a computer, but it's not a usable computer. It's a kiosk that you can only do these 3 things, and that's it. Press the big button. It's like going to McDonald's to buy a hamburger. I can't think of a good transition out of McDonald's to Couchbase.
There you go.
That was the transition.
Couchbase, another comment I got. I'm not sure where, maybe LinkedIn. Anyways. And it happened that I was invited to speak at their conference.
Really?
Yeah, so I had a talk. Basically, this is a variation of the talk that I gave Wednesday, maybe. And it was organized by our mutual acquaintance, Sebastian.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. So Couchbase, so the basis of this wasn't so much Couchbase as it was, should we run a database in Kubernetes?
Exactly.
Right. And this happened to be one. It's like, okay, if you must, then let's look at something that's built to be able to run that way.
Exactly. If database is built to, I mean, not necessarily built, you will hardly find a database that is built from ground up to be for Kubernetes, because databases do not pop up every week. But let's say adapted well, right?
Yeah.
Now, some are better, some are worse. But going back to the initial question you said is, should we run in Kubernetes? I say yes. If the database works well in Kubernetes, why not? But that's the last thing you move to Kubernetes. So kind of you finished all the other stuff, all your, you start with small applications that are serverless, and then you go to bigger applications, and then you go to this, then you go to that, and then when you say, okay, is there anything left for me to move to Kubernetes? Oh, databases. Okay.
It's like watching Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Did you ever watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Maybe, I don't remember it now.
CockroachDB sort of brings us up here too. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was Pee-wee Herman. You know who Pee-wee Herman is, right?
Yep.
Okay. I can't even try the voice. There was a section towards the end of the movie to where he runs into a pet store. And the pet store is on fire. So he's saving all the animals. But as time goes along, he keeps running past the bin that has all the snakes in it. And he gets everybody else saved except for the snakes until the very end. And then he comes out carrying all the snakes. Right? And he saved everybody else. Then that was it. A database inside Kubernetes is the snakes. It's the last thing you want to deal with.
Exactly.
In general. Now, if you're trying to do something from a caching perspective, okay, maybe cache can come in, right?
Well, yeah, even within databases there are kind of different. You don't move them all at once as well. Kind of the same logic as before. Hey, what is less risk? What is more appropriate? What's not? But ultimately, right, all that aside, and assuming that you understand how Kubernetes works and that you don't start with a database and all that stuff, there are benefits that Kubernetes gives us that shouldn't be ignored, right? Yeah. Hey, if it goes down, it will come back up. That's a good thing, right? And I'm not saying that feature exists only in Kubernetes, but in Kubernetes it works better than anywhere else, right? And so on and so forth. How do you scale things across your cluster? I mean, it would be silly to ignore the benefits Kubernetes gives us. Will you get as many benefits running database in Kubernetes as your silly, small, stateless application? No. But not getting the same level of benefits does not mean that you don't get benefits.
Yep. Thomas brings up a point here. Append-only databases work fine. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm just... So an append-only, from my perspective, is no different than Prometheus. Right? That's what that effectively is.
Exactly.
Vladislav brings up the resilient beast, and it's not really a big deal to run for a DB to run inside Kubernetes.
Yeah. Now, what is happening with databases also, at least by personal experience, is that there are probably pieces of software in an average company, in an average system that is updated with, or upgraded actually, with less frequency than anything else. For the same reasons, kind of why not start with databases. Databases are usually something just sitting somewhere that nobody dares to touch, even before we start talking about Kubernetes, right? It's just there. It's like a mainframe.
It's high risk. I mean, if you think about it, if you don't touch database upgrades, if that's not normal for you, and now you're going to put it inside Kubernetes that you're waiting for the last one. So let's say you're just now upgrading to 16 from 15, and 16's and your database that runs inside of, you find out, well, the database I've been running inside of 15 doesn't run inside of 16. But they fixed it so it would run inside of 17. But I can't get Kubernetes to 17 yet. Then you're going to be stuck at 15. And you will never leave 15.
It is a high risk.
Yeah, you put a dependency inside of a dependency, that's high risk.
Yeah, but still, it is a high risk, but high risk cannot be excuse not to, let's say, upgrade something, right? If upgrade is upgrading something is high risk, the solution to that is not to upgrade ever. That's not the solution. That means that you might need to put more attention to it, to take it more seriously and what's or not. But we cannot have excuse. Hey, you know what? I'm still running, I'm inventing now Windows 3.1 because it's high risk to upgrade. That's not an option, right? Yeah. So yeah, that no excuse for risk is not excuse.
More risk, more ways to screw up. Yep.
Yeah.
But if I'm using a cloud provider, why not use the DB managed by the cloud provider? Do that. That's what we want you to do.
That I think that I'm opening that video. I tend to forget, but I'm thinking that I'm opening it. Option number 1: let somebody else manage your database. Just do that. If there is even kind of like small possibility to do that, go for it. 100%. Kind of like.
Yep.
Why? Kind of like, why would I bother with my database?
If you're
managing it.
So that's what I was getting ready to say. If you're running in a cloud provider and you are self-managing a database, there had better be a really good reason why you're doing that, because it's definitely not a business differentiator for you. You may think it is. All it's doing is saving your job. That's basically all it is. Why do you want the hassle of dealing with disk, dealing with patch upgrades? I mean, again, I use AWS a lot. I love Aurora. I love, you name it. It just plain works. Cloud SQL for Google, plain works. Today it's
actually we always
wait. We do have one answer. Because Vladislav. Okay, fair enough. Because
I know his situation exactly. He's a DB vendor, so that doesn't apply to DB vendors. Right. You're providing service to others, but that concept of, here's the problem really. The concept of somebody is managing my database. We had that concept from the dawn of time, right? Always. When you're in a normal average company, you're a developer that has an application that uses a database. That database is almost certainly managed by somebody else, some other team, some other department, right? Now the question is, should that some other team be AWS or a group of people in your company? And there is, if you ignore the special cases, actually, no, there are no even special cases. There is no good reason not to let AWS or Azure or whomever manage your database unless it's too expensive.
Right.
That's the only, because I was about to say, unless you're in highly regulated industry, but then I remembered, hey, US government is running in cloud. Kind of like, that's as regulated, at least that's my understanding,
Yeah.
but that's as regulated as it can get.
Yeah.
So it cannot get more regulated than that, right?
Well, no, it can, but it's at least it's a good bar to get to.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, maybe I exaggerated. Yeah. There are probably valid examples. But what general, I'm really trying to what I'm trying to say is that there are good examples, but there are fewer than people tend to say that they are. Kind of like, correct. For every good example, there are 9 examples that are actually just excuses.
Yeah. And Thomas pulls it out here. If I have to also run on-prem, that's the answer. I agree that would be a reason of why you would self-manage, but even then I would probably shortlist it as, yes, I'm going to self-manage it for now, but if there's any way for me to dump that on somebody else, I'm going to. It's commoditized now. So, okay, and we're actually at the top of the hour already, or at the hour mark. Wow, that went by fast. Golly. In case you haven't joined up in the Slack workspace yet, if you're watching this on replay, scrolling down below us is the link off to the Slack workspace. Our Twitter handles are down there as well. Podcasts come out 6 a.m. Eastern every Wednesday. It's the weekend. And what does that mean? I'm editing the podcast for next Wednesday. I haven't even started yet.
I already calculated. I need between 6 to 10 hours per video. Yeah. That's one on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Oh, here, let's go ahead and give Vladislav his 30 seconds here. He still has tons of openings. Look up. We had a link. I'll see if let me write it down here. Hang on a second. See, I'm getting out my notebook. There it is. I'll get the Vladislav link in again. I'll pull it up and add it on YouTube.
You know what Vladislav is doing, and this can be interpreted in different ways because I know personally Vladislav, so I might be biased, but he's doing an excellent work as I think he's CTO. So that might be a good topic. We didn't have any CTO in our podcast, right?
Not yet, because
maybe Pulumi guy was CTO, right?
Well, he's the CEO.
CEO. Okay.
He was the founder, but he's also extremely. He's not CTO by title. Joe is actually a real developer as well, so it was a little bit different. But we try not to have too many C levels on because I don't know why. The reasons why I would think are probably too mean for me to say out loud.
Maybe we are too low for a C level to bother with. I think that might be. Kind of like you don't mix with peasants when you're on that level, right? Yeah. Or there must be a hierarchy.
There's always a hierarchy somewhere. Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. By the way, next week we're going to be back unless Victor has to change his schedule, because I've got 3 live streams next Friday, including this one.
Well
so I've already scheduled it for. We started a half hour earlier today based on Victor's request. We're going to move back to our normal time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. CET. That's where we're currently scheduled at. That doesn't mean it won't move, but that's where the placeholder exists right now. So if nothing changes, we'll be back to our quote-unquote normal time next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you again next week.